What happens when a sitting attorney general gets caught in a fiery exchange with a U.S. senator over healthcare, voting rates, and missing FBI money? This isn't just another political hearing. This is a clash that reveals deep fractures in how America's justice system operates under intense partisan pressure. Attorney General Pam Bondi faced her first Senate Judiciary Committee testimony since confirmation, and what unfolded was nothing short of explosive. Senator Peter Welch from Vermont came prepared with pointed questions about healthcare premiums threatening American families, controversial voting rights investigations targeting his state, and perhaps most intriguingly, $50,000 that mysteriously disappeared involving border czar Tom Homan. The tension was palpable, the accusations flew fast, and the answers, or lack thereof, left more questions than clarity. So what really happened in this heated exchange, and what does it mean for ordinary Americans caught in the crossfire? Senator Welch opened with a concern that transcends party lines, the impending healthcare crisis facing millions of Americans. He painted a vivid picture of a Vermont family, a nuclear household with 5 members, including parents aged 54 and 55, raising 3 children. One of those children battles acute myeloid leukemia, a devastating diagnosis that has already strained this family emotionally and financially. The senator's voice carried genuine concern as he explained that come November 1st, families like this one across the nation will receive notices of premium increases under the Affordable Care Act. For this particular Vermont family, the projected increase isn't marginal, it's catastrophic. Their premiums are expected to triple, pushing healthcare costs beyond their ability to pay. This isn't just a Vermont problem or a Democratic state issue. Families in Florida, Texas, Ohio, and every corner of America face the same potential devastation. The senator emphasized that whether voters supported President Trump or Vice President Harris in the last election, healthcare affordability affects everyone equally. The urgency cannot be overstated. November 1st represents a hard deadline where real consequences will hit real families. Attorney General Bondi's response to Senator Welch's healthcare concerns revealed a fascinating tactical approach that would characterize much of the hearing. Rather than directly addressing the policy implications or the systemic healthcare crisis, she pivoted to a more personal, charitable angle. She offered to personally speak with the Vermont family Senator Welch mentioned, suggesting involvement with Florida nonprofits that assist children with terminal illnesses. While this gesture might appear compassionate on the surface, it fundamentally sidesteps the larger systemic issue at hand. One family receiving nonprofit assistance doesn't solve the premium crisis affecting millions. Bondi then shifted blame for the government shutdown, attributing it to Democrats wanting health care for illegal aliens, a claim that reframes the healthcare debate through an immigration lens. This rhetorical strategy is worth examining carefully. By connecting healthcare expansion to immigration policy, she attempts to position Republican opposition not as denying Americans healthcare, but as protecting resources from being extended to undocumented immigrants. Senator Welch attempted to refocus the conversation, emphasizing that the healthcare crisis affects Trump supporters and Harris supporters alike, making it a bipartisan concern that demands bipartisan solutions. The hearing took a sharp turn when Senator Welch raised concerns about a letter his state received from the Department of Justice's Voting Rights Division. This wasn't just routine correspondence, it was a formal demand for comprehensive voting file information, including personal data on Vermont voters. What made this particularly contentious was the accompanying statement from the DOJ's voting rights chief, who framed the investigation as necessary to counter the voting process being taken over by the left. This characterization raises profound questions about the appropriate use of prosecutorial power. Vermont, a state with a Republican governor, and a history of Republican election officials, including a former Republican governor who served as both treasurer and secretary of state, hardly fits the profile of a state where the left has compromised election integrity. Senator Welch pressed Attorney General Bondi directly. What specific evidence justified this sweeping demand for Vermont's voting records? The exchange grew tense as Bondi initially claimed unfamiliarity with the specifics despite the letter originating from her department. She defended the demand as legally permissible, which Senator Welch didn't dispute, but legal authority and appropriate exercise of that authority are distinct concepts. Senator Welch's line of questioning revealed a critical concern about prosecutorial standards and the potential weaponization of the Justice Department. Drawing on Bondi's extensive experience as both a county prosecutor and Florida's Attorney General, he reminded her of the fundamental principle that prosecutors should have a factual basis before initiating investigations. This isn't merely procedural nicety, it's the cornerstone of fair justice that prevents fishing expeditions and politically motivated investigations. The senator's question was straightforward. Does the Justice Department have specific, factual evidence of election irregularities in Vermont that would justify demanding comprehensive voter files? Bondi's responses remained general, emphasizing the importance of fair and free elections without providing the specific Vermont-related evidence Senator Welch requested. She noted that similar requests had been sent to every state and that the Justice Department was already involved in voter roll lawsuits in 6 states. However, this broad approach doesn't answer whether individual states like Vermont warrant such scrutiny based on actual evidence rather than blanket suspicion. The tension here reflects a larger national debate about election integrity claims, the evidence supporting them, and how federal law enforcement powers should be deployed in election-related matters. One of the most revealing moments came when Senator Welch challenged what appeared to be an inconsistent application of the pending litigation standard. Throughout the hearing, Attorney General Bondi had repeatedly declined to answer questions from various senators, citing the principle that she couldn't discuss matters involved in pending litigation. This is a standard and generally appropriate limitation on what officials can discuss publicly. However, Senator Welch pointed out that Bondi had spoken at considerable length about the sentencing of an individual who threatened Justice Kavanaugh, a case that remains pending because the Justice Department plans to appeal the 8-year sentence as insufficient. The senator's observation highlighted what appeared to be selective application of the pending litigation rule. When the case aligned with political narratives the Attorney General wanted to emphasize, specifically threats against conservative Supreme Court justices, she provided detailed commentary, including gruesome details from the sentencing hearing. Yet when questions touched on matters potentially uncomfortable for the administration, the pending litigation shield went up immediately. Bondi defended this by distinguishing between discussing facts that emerged in open court versus ongoing investigative matters, but the distinction seemed thin to observers watching the exchange. Perhaps the most explosive portion of the hearing involved questions about $50,000 connected to border czar Tom Homan and the FBI. Senator Welch's questions suggested the existence of audio and video recordings documenting a transfer of this money, but the details remained frustratingly vague throughout the exchange. When pressed about whether such recordings exist, Attorney General Bondi claimed not to know the answer, directing the senator to ask FBI Director Patel instead. This response frustrated Senator Welch, who pointed out that, as Attorney General, Bondi oversees the FBI and should reasonably be expected to know about significant financial matters involving high-profile administration officials. The exchange grew heated when Senator Welch expressed disbelief that the Attorney General wouldn't know about recordings involving such a substantial sum connected to someone in a position as prominent as border czar. Bondi bristled at what she perceived as an accusation of dishonesty, sharply stating, "Don't call me a liar," when Welch suggested she must know the answer. The senator clarified he hadn't called her a liar, but was expressing skepticism about her claimed lack of knowledge. Bondi then stated the matter had been resolved before her confirmation as Attorney General, effectively closing off further discussion. When Senator Welch continued pressing about the $50,000 and where the money ultimately ended up, Attorney General Bondi's response shifted to a vigorous defense of Tom Homan's character and performance. She accused the senator of slandering Homan, emphasizing that FBI Deputy Director Blanche had stated there was nothing to the matter. This defensive posture is noteworthy because Senator Welch had been careful not to make direct accusations against Homan personally. He was simply asking factual questions about the money's whereabouts. Bondi praised Homan's work as border czar, crediting him with keeping border states safe and performing his duties excellently. This rhetorical move, transforming questions about financial accountability into attacks on a person's character and job performance, is a common deflection tactic in contentious hearings. It shifts the conversation from the specific question being asked to broader character assessments and policy evaluations. The exchange ended without clear answers about the $50,000, leaving viewers to wonder whether there's genuinely nothing to investigate or whether inconvenient questions were successfully deflected. The lack of transparency on this point stands in stark contrast to Bondi's earlier emphasis on accountability and the rule of law. This hearing between Senator Welch and Attorney General Bondi illuminates larger questions about Justice Department independence and the appropriate use of federal law enforcement power. Throughout American history, the tension between political accountability and prosecutorial independence has been delicate and contentious. Attorneys general serve at the pleasure of the president, making them inherently political appointees, yet they're also expected to administer justice impartially without regard to political considerations. The exchanges in this hearing raise concerns about whether that balance is being maintained. When voting rights investigations are framed explicitly as countering takeover by the left, it suggests a partisan lens that may be inappropriate for federal law enforcement. When healthcare debates are reframed through immigration politics rather than addressed on their policy merits, it reveals how deeply partisan considerations penetrate even ostensibly neutral administrative functions. When questions about financial accountability involving administration officials are deflected rather than answered transparently, it undermines public confidence in oversight mechanisms. These aren't abstract concerns. They affect how Americans perceive the fairness and legitimacy of their justice system. The language watchers exchange practical implications extend far beyond Washington political theater. The healthcare crisis Senator Welch described will affect real families in real ways starting November 1st. Families facing tripled premiums will have to make impossible choices between healthcare coverage and other necessities like housing, food, and education. The voting rights investigations, regardless of their merit, create uncertainty and potential barriers in election administration that could affect voter access and confidence. The lack of clear answers about financial accountability involving high-ranking officials contributes to cynicism about whether powerful people play by the same rules as everyone else. Perhaps most concerning is the apparent difficulty in getting straight answers to straightforward questions. When elected officials and appointed leaders engage in deflection, blame shifting, and selective transparency, it erodes the trust necessary for democratic governance to function effectively. Citizens deserve to know whether voting rights investigations are based on evidence or partisan suspicion. They deserve clarity about healthcare policy rather than political finger-pointing. They deserve transparency about how taxpayer dollars are handled, especially when substantial sums are involved. This hearing didn't occur in a vacuum. It reflects the highly polarized political environment following the 2024 presidential election. With Donald Trump having won the presidency over Kamala Harris and being inaugurated in January 2025, his administration's appointees, like Attorney General Bondi, operate in an atmosphere of intense partisan scrutiny. Democrats, having lost the White House, are using congressional oversight as their primary tool for accountability and opposition. Republicans, controlling the executive branch, are pursuing policy priorities that often conflict with Democratic values and constituencies. The healthcare debate exemplifies this perfectly. Efforts to modify or reduce Affordable Care Act provisions face fierce resistance from Democrats who view healthcare access as a fundamental right, while Republicans frame their approach as fiscal responsibility and opposing illegal immigration benefits. The voting rights investigations similarly reflect deep partisan divides about election integrity, with Republicans emphasizing concerns about voter fraud and Democrats warning about voter suppression. In this environment, hearings like this one become proxy battles for larger ideological conflicts, making it difficult to achieve the bipartisan problem solving that complex issues like healthcare affordability genuinely require. As this hearing concluded, several critical questions remained unanswered, setting the stage for continued conflict and investigation. Will the Justice Department provide specific evidence justifying its voting rights investigations in Vermont and other states? Or will the demands proceed based on generalized concerns? Will Congress and the administration reach agreement on healthcare policy before the November 1st deadline? Or will millions of families face devastating premium increases? Will there be further investigation into the $50,000 connected to Tom Homan? Or has that matter truly been resolved as Attorney General Bondi claimed? Will the apparent double standard in discussing pending litigation be addressed? Or will selective transparency continue? These questions matter because they affect fundamental aspects of American governance: the integrity of elections, the accessibility of healthcare, the accountability of public officials, and the fair administration of justice. The heated exchange between Senator Welch and Attorney General Bondi revealed how difficult it is to get clear answers in our current political environment, where every question carries partisan implications and every answer is scrutinized for political advantage. Moving forward, Americans will be watching to see whether their elected and appointed officials can rise above partisan warfare to address genuine policy challenges affecting ordinary people's lives. Thank you for watching this analysis all the way through. The exchange between Senator Peter Welch and Attorney General Pam Bondi raises important questions about accountability, transparency, and the fair administration of justice in our current political climate. We genuinely love to hear your perspective on what you've just watched. What did you think of Attorney General Bondi's responses? Did Senator Welch's questions seem fair and appropriate, or do you think he was being overly confrontational? Which moment in this hearing stood out to you as most significant? Your thoughts and opinions matter, and we always read and appreciate the diverse perspectives our viewers share in the comment section below. If you found this detailed breakdown valuable and want to stay informed about important political developments affecting your daily life, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest analysis. We're committed to providing thorough, fair examination of political events without sensationalism or partisan spin. Once again, thank you for investing your time and staying informed about how your government operates. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep questioning what you're told.